Handle your hive with Tadeushi. All right, welcome to the show. I have Johanna Bassols. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Bassols?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Hi.
Now, I hear I picked it up in some of your posts. I found you on Instagram and I saw some of these really beautiful, wonderful posts that you made. And I picked up a little, even in your writing, a little accent.
Oh my gosh, am I writing too?
No, your writing is not
I
bad.
hide from it.
So I'm guessing you're from somewhere in South America or somewhere?
Yes, I'm born in Peru. I've been in Miami for 15 years, so it's not so different than South America because here,
Right.
mostly we speak Spanish anyway. But yes, I've been here for 15. I'm from Peru. I go back and forth as much as I can, not so much anymore because of the situation, but I try to make it every year to visit my family, stay in touch with everything. And I also lived in Venezuela 10 years.
Okay.
My father used to travel a lot for work, so he's an electronic engineer and took us everywhere and lived in different countries. It was interesting because that allowed me to adapt to different cultures, different ways of thinking, and I was never able to create like an identity with a place. I was very open to different.
That sounds like my life. I've lived, well, except it's only been in the United States. I've lived East Coast, West Coast. I've actually lived in every time zone.
That makes a difference.
Currently, I live in Arizona. I live in Tempe, and I love being close to Sedona, which I know you'll probably resonate with you. I love to go up there at least once a month. And for people who don't know, so what attracted me to you was your company, Healers of Light, and you've written books, I guess, and you're an energy healer. And
yes.
So tell everybody exactly what that means and what you do. I want people to be clear about that.
Well, to start, I've been researching about consciousness, metaphysics, the mind for over 25 years. That's been like an interest of mine that I had since I was a child. I was introduced to metaphysics when I was 8-9 years old. And there was like a coincidence, something I wasn't planning to do. I went into a bookstore when I was, my mother was looking for something else, and I grabbed this book on metaphysics, and I started asking, what is this? And she's like, I don't know. Just grab the book and figure it out. So I started reading, and this is interesting. I asking people what is it? Really my interest started growing from there. And I always had that innate interest for what is the subconscious, what is not really so present, but it's something more interior. So that was always an interest of mine. I research a lot, and my research has grown tremendously since I had the opportunity to explore within me, because before my research was about others, books from other people, things about other people. But then when I started practicing introspective research, which was more about paying attention to how my body feels, how I respond to emotions, how I react to triggers, to sensorial impulses, to different things, then that's when I really started gaining experience in understanding how the subconscious mind worked. And that's been let's say, my graduation and this after 25 years, and how to really work with the systems has been going inward instead of so much looking into other things. But Healers of the Light started as a way to express myself and share my research a little bit with the world. And unfortunately, in the group my immediate group of family and friends, no one really was interested in these topics, or no one really cared to talk about this. And they were like, oh yeah, you're gonna start talking about that,
Right.
talk to me. And I was like, oh, it's so sad, because I couldn't really talk to anyone. And I started really just not talking at all. I would be the one sitting, waiting for the reunion to be over, because I was just bored and oh, when is this? I had no one to talk to, and not interested in any of the topics they were talking about. So I said, I have to do something, because I feel the need that I have to talk, or I started having a problem where my voice was so soft that no one could even hear me. And I realized something is wrong, because this is not me. I can speak, I can be very passionate about what I'm talking about, but something is not right. So I decided to go to singing lessons. And I thought, maybe this person can help me fix my voice. Something is wrong physically with my vocal cord. Something has.
Did you feel
And
this just at certain times, or was it
not,
just, or was it all the time?
no, that was just then, before I started the process of self-expression. So that was because I had this accumulation of things that I hadn't said or I hadn't been able to express myself, that I just repressed all that, and like my throat had closed completely. There was no like voice coming out of me. No one could hear anything. So I started going to the singing lessons, and we were practicing opening up the voice here and there. And then in one of those practices, the teacher asked me to read something. I had a book. I also have a real estate company. So she said, read something from a paragraph from the book that you have there. So I read the paragraph, and I was like it was my soft voice. And then she said, why don't you talk about something that you love? And then I started explaining about my research. And she said, this is not the same person who's talking here. This, you don't have any problem in your voice. You're done. I mean, you don't even need to continue this. The problem is that you need to connect your heart with your voice and just be more really mind what you're saying. And that resonated so much with me that I said, I have to express myself. I'm going to create this platform where I can really share my thoughts, my research, and I'm going to start writing, because that's a way in which I felt I could share my knowledge and just reach more people. So that's how Healers of the Light started. And a lot of people since then have joined, and they also talk about the things that maybe no one else wants to talk about. Like it's not like a common thing. Like you can just go to any cocktail party and start talking
Right.
about, emotions and they're going to be like, get out of here. I don't want to talk about that.
Well, one of the things that drew me to you was a post you did on traumas trapped in the body. And I was hoping you could talk about that, because I've had lots of anecdotal experience with people, and I work with lots of people throughout the year on their bodies, their fitness, and with their diet and exercise and stuff like that. And there are people, and I've experienced this myself too as well, that I really truly can feel that we absolutely trap energetically trauma in our bodies, emotional traumas, I think, and it can manifest itself physically. Talk about that.
Yes, absolutely. Trauma is physiological before it's psychological. So it happens in our body first. It's a chemical reaction. Something happens that then we perceive emotionally later. So the process starts in our body. So let's say you present something that is shocking, or you hear a noise that is loud. Before that, you can process that, I'm scared of this. It's something chemical happens first, and then you get the reaction. So physically, we always store these reactions first. And unless we allow the proper way to exteriorize them or release them or process them, then we keep them, because we still need to understand what happened. So if we don't address those experiences correctly and allow them to give them an answer, respond, they create a sort of question. All these experiences, especially traumas, create internal questions, and we have the responsibility to answer those questions. And that question has two options. You can either use that question to identify with the circumstances what will make you remain in trauma, or you can use that question to identify your true self. You find out more about yourself, like self-recognize your inner essence, and then you will have answered the question correctly. So the difference is either, let's say you haven't, like this case, I couldn't express myself and I was developing this inability to speak. So I was identifying with the circumstances. I was believing that I really didn't have anything good to say because nobody wanted to hear it, or I had no one to talk to. So my throat just started like simply closing. There's nothing to say. So now you're not even going to be able to hear your voice.
So was that do you think that's a protective mechanism to protect you from that a similar trauma?
Exactly, because if nobody wants to hear me, I want to avoid the rejection of people not wanting to hear me. So I just not going to say anything, or I won't be able to even, I won't try, because I just feel exhausted if I start talking, because it's that this is like a whole chain of events that are trying to prevent you from having that experience again. So if you start accumulating those identities, believing that really you don't have anyone to talk to, you can't express yourself, then your body is going to react in that way. It's going to reaffirm what you think. It's just the way that you're expressing or thinking is going to be expressed through your body. So the best way that you can fix this kind of problem is to, instead of identifying with the circumstance or what's happening, trying to go back to yourself and realize, is it really me? Is it really no one really wants to talk to me? Or what is happening? How do I fix this problem? And then you realize that there is a disconnection, right, between something, or something is too intensified or needs more intensity. So it's always like a imbalance in some kind of energy, chi or yang, right? So it's like I have too much of this or too little of this. So what happens is that I had not expressed myself. I had no energy flow in this part of my body. So what I had to do is to practice. I started singing. I started eating foods that were activating, like foods that allow me to create more activation, like let's say warm things. Or I also started doing massages, acupuncture, a lot of different things that will allow me to open the energy in this part of my body. So
now people, a lot of people don't realize that we're just energy. We experience ourselves as physical bodies, but we're really all energy. And so what you're describing is the flow of energy. Maybe you can help people who might not understand what you mean by this energy flow. Tell me what you mean.
The energy flow is a way of not interfering with nature, not interfering with life force. I would say energy is the life force. And the way that energy tries to communicate with you is by activating, balancing, or slowing something down. So it allows you to basically move. It's like a movement. And if you interfere with that movement, then you create some kind of blockage and stagnation. And that's when energy is trapped. And that's what we need to prevent. The energy is trapped in the body.
So in your case, the trapping of the energy was your beliefs.
Exactly what I believed about myself, my thoughts, believing that my circumstances were not really, that I was my circumstances. For that reason, I wasn't going to talk, but I wasn't my circumstances. I am beyond my circumstances. So I'm going to express myself regardless of my circumstances. I found a way to do that. And then when I did that, immediately, the flow opened up. Opportunities came up from everywhere. I discovered I had all this talent for writing, and on top of that, I love it. And a lot of things happened after that. So it was like a life-changing experience, just because instead of focusing in my circumstances, I focused in myself. I went and I discovered myself rather than identifying with what was happening, which is I don't have anyone to talk to. I don't have anyone to care what I'm saying. So it was like, you can continue believing that, and that will happen for the rest of your life, or you can allow yourself to evolve, transcend, but you have to focus inward. It's the only way that you can heal those emotional blockages, is by connecting with your body, is by allowing that interaction to happen. And that's when the energy starts flowing, is when you remove the blockage.
I've heard people like, I'm sure you know who this is, like Dr. Joe Dispenza and people that. So I love his stuff, his work, and he talks a bit about some of the work that he does and how he helps people release these traumas, and they release this energy. And there's a literal physical release that you can see oftentimes and experience, and the person experiences almost sometimes like a violent, almost release of energy. Talk about that a little bit. Did you experience that?
Yes. Well, one of my experiences when I was working with emotions, I had a few different experiences throughout my whole research of consciousness and how to apply that knowledge to myself. One of those things is something I call restructuring, which it happens when you experience a state of awareness. It's like a state of heightened attention, but inward. So when you are in that state, many things start like fixing themselves and like just getting into the right places. Let's say that's a restructuring. What happens is that we have many identifications with circumstances, like I explained before, and that starts changing our thoughts about ourselves, starts changing our identity. So when we experience these heightened states of awareness, everything starts kind of like falling into place naturally.
So when you say heightened states of awareness, do you mean like meditative states or?
it could be a meditative, yeah, let's say it's similar to a meditative state, but it's not necessarily it's just a state of calm. It's a state in which you're so aware that everything changes. It's like your sensorial interaction changes. You will notice how sounds are lower, light is lower. So there's like enter a whole new space, like if you went into another physical dimension. And when you are there, everything has the opportunity to find its right place. And then that's a restructuring. When I started practicing that,
how do you practice that?
well, I found that besides just meditation, because I had a real hard time just sitting and being blank, I couldn't do that. So I started triggering that through my body. I started practicing different things. So I did pressure and release techniques to release endorphins, like planking and then releasing. That was something that helped me a lot to like reach physical awareness.
I know that like when I studied exercise science in college, we talked a little bit about peak states of performance, and it's common knowledge that when an athlete is like on the football field or out there doing their thing, whatever sport they're in, and they get into quote the zone, and nothing could go wrong, nothing goes wrong. That's the state you're talking about?
That's a state, and I also discovered that okay, through my physical body, I could reach that state, but now how do I remain in it for longer? That was another thing. So I said I had to make internal changes. One of those changes were changing my thoughts, and another was changing what I ate, my nutrition, because the foods I was eating would overstimulate my brain impulses, and it would make it almost impossible to remain in a same brainwave. So I had to cut off a lot of things that for me personally were I felt like when I ate them, I was immediately in a bad mood or immediately triggered. You know, it's like, why am I even eating these things if I feel sick when eating? Like, why do I do that?
Can you give some examples? Because other people might have the same thing.
I completely cut off on sugar, all kinds of sugar, absolutely all kinds. I follow a vegan and ketogenic diet now. It works for me, and I think for my lifestyle, and because I am writing and constantly like in meditation, and this really helps me stay in the most focused state. And so I had to eliminate sugar. Coffee made me feel really bad. I don't know. I had like a pain in the back of my head. It was like a mess. I don't know why I even tried it. It was just because it was a thing to do, but it was bad. So I stopped that. I stopped eating.
Like alcohol? What about alcohol?
Definitely. All alcohol, I cut that completely. All kinds of addictive things like meats or processed products that are known for causing addiction. Gluten, for sure. Gluten, it was something that would clog my mind immediately. I would eat a piece of bread and then immediately I couldn't even think, like I was just going in circles. Wow. So I started perceiving like what are those things, and I started going down the list. I mean, now I'm left with like a few things. But I'm like, this works, I'm going to keep it. And now I'm learning more about that. You know,
it helps you to, so just what you put in the body really can disconnect you from your body.
Absolutely. And because let's say I had a coffee with sugar, and you can't meditate after that. It's impossible. Your brain is like going racing. Like I'm like, why people do that to themselves if they're trying to be in a calm state? And I cannot even focus on anything. And it doesn't give me more motivation. It just makes me crash in 20 minutes, and I feel worse the rest of the day. So I said I have to find a way to remain in the same state of consciousness throughout the day, and that was one of the most important things. Changing what I ate changed everything for me, and it made me internally more able to reach the consciousness that I wanted. Then physically, there was a connection there. It's not all about the mind. You also have to work with your body. So in my body, I had a lot of beliefs that I had stored, limitations, things that my body had, things that you could see through my posture, or things that you could see through how tired I would get from different things. So it was like I was analyzing everything at that point, and I said, this is like information that is stored in my body, and I started like analyzing everything about it. And so I started.
Don't let me forget to ask you about posture. I want to know more about that, because I've been my intuition's been telling me something about posture these days.
Yes. So my posture would show basically something that I was I was afraid to express myself in some way, and I could see that, and I knew that I wasn't like that because I'm not an introvert at all, but my body would show different. So it was like something that I had recorded, and I didn't even know if it was mine or I had recorded from other people that I frequently see, and I'm just adopting their ways of thinking. And because that could happen too, you can have a partner, a friend, your parents, anyone, and because you see them all the time, you start recording things
Sure.
like you mirror them.
You synchronize.
So I realized, I'm like, there were a lot of things that were not even mine, and I said, I don't want any of this. So I started learning about martial arts because I said, martial artists are the ones that are more connected and understand the connection between their body and mind. So I need to know what makes them have such a use of their body that is almost like superhuman. And it's because they have this connection with their mind. Parallel, it's like they feed both of them. You see them reading and studying as much as they practice. So I said, I have to be, as much as I'm interested in the research of consciousness, I need to research about my body. So I started the changes in nutrition, and as well as exercising and pushing myself over the limits that I usually would. And the results were incredible. Obviously, I had, I felt so great and confident, and everything just started changing. My body obviously changed because naturally from exercising, but also there is something like an energy, a presence about it that started changing too, and it just made me feel more myself. And I was able to release a lot of things. And I like to always use also acupressure, pressing points in the body that are nervous terminals, especially. That's where most of these emotions are stored usually. And by that practice, I was able to move a little faster. So I accomplished, let's say, in a period of 6 months, what someone would take years, because I had other friends that had started the same process. I'm going to start working out, or I'm going to start diet, and they're like, look the same 3 years later. And I was like, in 6 months, people couldn't believe my transformation because I had paired mind, body, spirit, and I was working constantly on those. And I can't emphasize how much faster you move through. And this is something I had tried before. I knew my body, and I said, this is not going to happen ever. And now I think I feel the best I felt in my whole life because I finally started pairing all those levels.
What drew you to those connections? Because most people, we think of like our mind. If we're upset about something, we usually think, oh, it's just in my mind. But you attacked it from all 3 different angles. What led you down that path to meet all these things together?
Well, I teach a technique that is called reprogramming, subconscious reprogramming. That's one of my featured classes that I teach. In that class, I show people the roots where their patterns are formed. So many of these patterns come from childhood, from things they learned in the past, and many of them too are in the physical body. So, and then we see how the repercussions of those stored patterns reach the body. So that was one of the things that made me realize how connected it is, and especially because of seeing so many people in individual consultations too that want to work with their patterns, and asking them, how do you feel physically? I was able to create certain connections with, this person feels like this, and they are managing this kind of emotions. There is a connection here. So I gave them recommendations on how to work with both at the same time. And I said, this is so similar for everyone, and always people managing individual problems, but at the end of the day, it's the same kind of emotions, like same 5 emotions, the worry, stress, joy, and grief. And usually those are the ones that are the most influential, and they're going to influence the most your behavior and how you think and everything else. So that really, from seeing others, basically is how I decided to also apply that on myself and show, because I have to apply everything that I learned first on me, and then it works, let's go and do it. But I can't believe how much how a big of a difference it was when I really started putting all those three things together, like working the mind, the body, and spiritually as well. Which is spiritually means, everything intangible, like emotions, things, subconscious mind, perception, all those things.
When as you worked with people, what are some of the common things when it comes to the emotion of anxiety? Because I talk to a lot of people, and when I work with a lot of athletes, but also regular people who want to lose weight or just be healthy, and they oftentimes, what stops them from being able to perform in their process of their diet, their life process, is a lot of worry and anxiety, and that seems to be big. And as a matter of fact, if you look statistically in the United States, there is about 75% of all of the visits to the physician. 75% of those are to do anxiety or worry. And depression. It's a huge number. And so, what would be? How have you seen that? And what would be some of your advice for people like that?
Well, I've noticed I noticed this correlation with especially women who who were managing all this stress and worry and cortisol levels being high, and that immediately being affecting them in different ways. Not only like they will gain weight, because that's the first kind of thing with cortisol, but also their mood was really, they couldn't really be comfortable in their own bodies. So they were like, what's going on with me? I don't want to be like this with my family. I don't want to communicate like this. What's happening? So I started working, like I said, tackling both ends. We're going to work in the emotional sense, but also physical level. We have to lower the cortisol level. So we start a special diet, make sure that we release all the things that trigger cortisol. It's for people dealing with stress, especially because I noticed that was a constant thing, that emotion, and that release of that particular hormone. So working with that, changing their diet, lowering sugar, lowering alcohol, and all the things that activate cortisol, getting a little bit more exercise, drinking more water, and removing from their life as much or as many triggers of anger and stress as they could really help. But not only that, that's like reactive, but proactively also doing things, feeding their interest, looking for things that really that would really make them happy, because no one was really, they were like reactively living, just trying to handle everything that comes to them, but they were not really looking for things that make them feel good. So feeding their interest in most of them. So I said, this is something that you have to do with all patterns. You have to heal the root, but you also have to change it for a new pattern, because your body and your entire being is made on patterns. You have to change one thing and put another. So you need to bring that interest so you can feel that different energy. If you're not doing that, then you're simply like trying to,
just putting out fires.
Like in a baseball game, trying to go with hit everything that comes at you, but okay, what else are you doing to improve or just feel good? And it's such a simple thing, but I'm like, at least call your friends. Have something in your schedule that says, I have 15 minutes for myself. If you're not into meditation, you're not into things like that, do something that you like. Meditation is not only like trying to be there in a Buddha pose. You can also do things that you like I write, for example. I enjoy writing 1 hour a day, or I share my posts. That really makes me feel good. I'm in the sun when I do that, or I do my workout. All those are forms of meditation, and they make you feel good. And that's like, you have to have those moments in the day. Otherwise, you accumulate these negative emotions and you accumulate these hormones in your body. So you have to find an exit. And pairing that with detoxing the body also, I always recommend them when we are doing these healing sessions. Even when we're doing energy healing only, I tell them you have to drink water, you have to start a detoxing process, depending on what we're working, what kind of energy we're working on, because that would determine what organ we really want to target. And for that, there will be different foods that I would recommend to detox, but everything will be natural, like maybe some herbs that are known to work with for that particular organ, or maybe some just natural foods, raw foods, ideally, like start like a raw food diet for a week or two to help your body detox. And that's like a pairing thing.
One of the things that I've been sort of seeing, not only in my own clients, but also out there when I look out there in the world and when I watch some of the news and stuff, it's really surrounding around a lot of this COVID stuff when it comes to self-quarantining and really what I consider isolation, where people are isolating themselves even when they're out at the grocery store. We're wearing masks. We're not coming within 6 feet of each other. I just flew back from Salt Lake City and I had judged a show out there, and I got on the plane and everyone's wearing their masks, and I had a wonderful conversation with the guy next to me. Now, I'm not inhibited. I'm going to express myself. But I could really feel it. And then until I got to the show where everybody in my industry is kind of like this to a certain degree, it was wonderful. It was like we're almost back to normal, but I really fear that this has real, especially because I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I really fear that this kind of isolation, this kind of wearing masks, not being able to see facial expressions, not being able to communicate on all the levels in which that we're used to communicating with each other, and that it's harming us. It's taking away from our well-being. What would you say? Would you?
Yes, well, definitely it is. But we can see, well, we have to deal with the situation. If we can't change it, because, if you go out and try to create your own rules right now, perhaps you're going to go to jail. So we don't want that.
Some places you might.
You're going to have to kind of ease into find your ways, sort of like I did. So if you're in this situation, we cultivate more the inner experience if you can't do anything with the outer experience. And we're human, so we are creative, we're intelligent, we're gonna find ways to interact like we're doing now online, or we're gonna have to find other ways to connect, because that's our nature. We're not just simply not going to connect. And if some people are just hanging into the circumstance, like I said, they're gonna see we can't connect and they're gonna stay focusing on that. But if you start looking into your inner essence as human, then you're going to realize it's my nature to connect. I'm going to find another way. I'm going to go and I'm going to express myself in different ways. Perhaps there will be more of an online movement than there was before. I don't think they can stop human nature from being human.
No. I think it's kind of built. We're hardwired this way.
They can try all they want and all these things, and I don't even know if it's true or not, or a politics.
There's so many stories out there.
I don't know, but what I know is that we're always going to be human, and we're always going to have the choice to do what we want, and we're going to find the ways, because that's innovation.
And more importantly, we're going to have the desire to connect. I deeply want to connect with people, and it's probably because I'm an identical twin, and I have a deep connection with my brother. And as a matter of fact, I spoke with a twin researcher that he's a professor here at ASU and an associate dean here, and one of his colleagues is a researcher on twin research. And she's also an identical twin as well. And we got to talk. She's published several books. And I guess, I didn't know this, but twins, especially identical twins, she said, identical twins, not paternal twins, but identical twins, they desire connection. They live in a world of connection when they come out of the womb. And now, and I know that's been one of my challenges with my wives. I've been married twice, and with my girlfriends, I just can't get. I've been picking the wrong people, but I can't get this deeper connection, and I've always measured it. And so now but like you said, I've been trying to find creative ways to connect to people, because I now realize that not everybody really desires these deeper levels of connection. But
that's very true. I am dealing with the same situation. I wish I had a deeper connection, but it's just impossible. It is impossible, but it's not impossible for me. So I know that it is possible in some way. So, if I can't find that connection at that level, at relationship level, I'll find a connection at another level. So I find a connection within me. I find a connection with my books, sharing that information to people, find other ways of sharing that connection, because I think there is a time and place for everything. So perhaps it's not the moment. Perhaps something else that you need to learn about intimate connections. And when you reach that knowledge, then you will be ready to meet a person or create that type of connection in anything, maybe even work relationships and anything, or just have a best friend, or who knows, something in that level. And I think it is always because we are a reflection of our experiences. Our experiences are a reflection of who we are. So if something is missing, try to find out what is missing within you. Like, what is that piece that you have it, but you want to see it expressed in others? So what is that? It could be inner connection, like, is your heart and your brain are they connected? Like what you think here and you would think over there, are they the same, or you have this problem where your brain says one thing and your heart says another, and you guys are fighting constantly? That could be one, because that's like the main reason why people have trouble finding connection. And also the connection between your mind and your muscles. Like, are you connected? Like when you exercise, you feel really like that connection in your muscles. I learned from the martial artists, that they said, if your mind has to be connected with your muscles, with your body movement, with everything, because otherwise you're just like you're a body without a mind. Right. So you have to like connect both.
Well, in the bodybuilding world, it's very common nomenclature to talk about the mind-muscle connection, because at the highest level of competition, and I've competed at all these levels, and you have to be able, when you train, you have to have this mind-muscle connection to be able to develop your physique to that level. If you don't have it, if you're just in there pushing weights around a room, you can literally do the same work and get completely different results.
Exactly. I've experienced that. You have to have the connection, even at that level. If you experience that connection, mind, muscle, then think about mind, muscle, spirit, emotions. So how can I make more of a connection? What would happen if I connect in a like wider level?
I think what you, as you were talking, what came to mind, and it's something that a few other I don't know, I can't. Braden, do you know what's his first name? I can't remember his first name, but his name is Braden. He was a physicist, but he's also a person who talks on these topics as well. I think also Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it. But there's a mind-heart connection where you create coherence, and when they resonate together, and when that happens, he said magical things happen. Like major healings happen, cancers are healed, amazing things happen. Tell me about that. I've always wanted to understand this in a deeper level.
That is the same state of awareness that I mentioned before. Is a state in which you are one. There's no duality between your mind, between your body, between anything. It's a state in which you are completely coherent. It's one. You're one with everything. There is not even a sensation or a perception of anything outside of you. That's why I was mentioning sensorial perceptions change, because you don't feel that you're different. It's like you're one with everything. This coherence basically means that everything you're observing, you're not judging. It's a state in which you are observing, but also you are one with it. It's an integration, basically. You're integrated with your space, with yourself. It is that connection perhaps what you could be looking for. What most people who want to experience deeper connection with others are looking for is that develop that connection, the mind and heart, that coherence. And once they can experience that, then they will know exactly, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want to experience in with another person, or this is what I want to experience. But you have to be able to experience it within yourself before you can experience it with someone else.
And a lot of, I think, what holds a lot of people back from experiences? Is it the traumas, or is it
a lot of things? It could be the foods they eat, how they're not aware of their bodies, in a lot of different aspects, especially because of trauma. Because when you experience trauma, you don't want to be aware. You want to be completely unaware so you can stand it, So, and this is a process that has to be delicate. It has to be organic. So it's a process of you going day by day, trying to heal. It's because you are the only one who knows how much you can take at a time. So you go and you try, and you don't even need to like remember old events. All you have to do is to be present. It's about being present in the moment now and experiencing your inner awareness. That inner awareness restructures the past. You don't need to go to the past to fix the past. You need to be in the present.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I have a friend, one particular friend, as a matter of fact, who's on this journey to try to to sort of deconstruct her past and to help her heal. She's got a lot of trauma, and it's affecting her physically. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's just, but she believes that, and we've had our exchanges or our discussions about this, because I don't believe you need to go to the past. It's something inside me tells me that we can leave that where it is.
Yes, exactly.
So tell me how you would describe that to her.
Well, the past is only a perception. What is happening is the present moment, and when you can experience this present moment in as much intensity as you can, this awareness that I call it, this coherence, if you are in the present moment intensely, then everything else, all the beliefs and ideas that you have about the past and the future, they start to change, because they can't prevail over what you're experiencing right now, which is, I'm alive, I'm healthy, I'm here, I'm present, I'm breathing. So all these other things that could have happened start losing power in front of that awareness. The more you cultivate that self-awareness, that inner connection, the more the other things start fading. They start losing intensity or importance. And that's something that I call ego, or is called ego.
Sure.
And the ego is the beliefs that you have about yourself that don't let you be yourself. So the ego will tell you, you are this trauma, so you're limited, you're not going to be able to do anything. And you have an awareness that is stronger than that ego and tells you, you can be yourself. You just have to be more aware of who you are. And then when you cultivate that, by cultivating your interest, by trying to reach that state in which you're fully present, whether it is through breathing, through meditation, through doing something that you're so passionate about that you're like, in the zone, like Albert Einstein creating these formulas, or someone like that, that is like so intense, in that moment you're transforming because you're so focused and so present that it's like you're an antenna for transformation.
Oh yeah, I remember Braden talks about this being this, like, we're like little computers that get downloads. If you can put yourself in these states, you literally can get inspired with these literally like just downloads of information. Like all the information is all out there for us. It's just
Absolutely.
that are we available for it?
Exactly.
And you sound like, really, it's really wonderful to hear these things, because it reminds me so much of the stuff I read from Eckhart Tolle about presence. I love his stuff, and people who know me know I repost his stuff all the time, because I'm like, this is it, man. I receive his newsletters because I love his ideas on presence. And it sounds like I know you know who he is. So
I love Eckhart Tolle. I haven't read all of his books, but with a couple of his books, I had experiences of was saying, I could feel that happening to me, just that state in which things were, I couldn't move. It was like a stillness and I couldn't really move, and things were happening and I was like, oh my God, I can't move my body. And I'm going through that. And that happened to me a few times with, things I was doing, like breathing states and things like that. But by reading one of his books many years ago, I remember, I don't know what I was doing. I was in a canopy, I was reading, and then I experienced stillness. I couldn't move, and suddenly it was like a transformation of identity. I wanted to get out of a relationship I was in that time, and I couldn't. And that was like 5 minutes later, I was out. I was like, wow. This is what I needed. I needed like something to change in my brain. It's like somebody went in my head and
just changed a few knobs.
Identity needs to change. Experience presence, and I was so confident something did really change. So there was a limitation that I couldn't get rid of, and I didn't know what it was. So I didn't know how to eliminate something that I didn't know. And by experiencing myself so intensely in that moment, in the present, I was able to let go of that limitation. So I didn't really have to try to fight that problem that I thought I had. I only had to be present so intensely that the problem disappeared. There was no more limitation. There was like whatever belief I had, it went away. It was minutes. Time elapsed less than a minute, and I was, wow, I needed that, just to be aware.
I often think, because I've spent a lot of time, in my own life, trying to be present, especially more so now than ever before. If I knew this years ago, I think I probably would have been, my life would have taken many different trajectories, but I'm happy where I'm at, and where I'm going. But I often think today, and I think about this because I have a daughter who's 11, and she's really into her technology devices, and these cell phones that we have, which are wonderful, and I do business with the technology. I couldn't do my business without technology, but for whatever reason, it has shortened our attention spans and brought us. Many people have a very difficult time being present.
Yes.
How do you give any advice for that with your clients?
Yes, absolutely. I tell them, anything that makes you feel good is fine, but you have to find a balance. If you find yourself spending hours in the computer, spending hours on your phone, trying to disconnect, then something is wrong. You have to find things that allow you to connect more. You can use things for inspiration, things to make you better, things like, there are accounts there, here and there that makes you feel good, and they have valuable information. There are things that are just distracting you and wasting your time. So you have to choose really what kind of thoughts you allow in you, because that's going to be stored in your body in some place. So what do you allow? What do you want with you? I would go through like all my list of accounts that I follow or things that I have connected, and every so often, if I find something that is really not resonating with how I feel at the moment, I try not to. I turn it off, or try not to be so aware of that or pay so much attention to it, because it's about making you feel good and find your balance. If it's taking you off balance and making you feel stressed for some way, then it's really not good.
I talk to my clients a lot about choosing your thoughts. I love that you use those words because a lot of people believe that they don't choose their thoughts, that they just happen. and I tell them they're a choice. And some thoughts we lean into more, and so we start to ruminate on those. How do you explain it to people? To get them to control their thoughts?
Our thoughts could be conscious or unconscious. Unconscious thoughts come from all the sources that I mentioned before.
Right.
Foods that make us have uncontrollable brain impulses, or other triggers, like food especially, but also like other physical triggers. It could be anything that is uncomfortably interacting with you, like senses. Right now I've been working a lot with senses, because sensorial interaction is something that we don't pay attention to, because we're used to the way that we perceive light or sound. But really, it could change our experience completely if we have a sensitivity to light or sound. So some people have associations. For example, I realized that I have a person that had an experience, traumatic experience, and she had recorded some kind of association with color red, and for that reason, every time she would see something red, it would remind her of that difficult time or of that traumatic experience. So she had blocked herself from seeing red things, and she would not perceive those out there. Her life would be like, I perceive all the other colors, but everything that is in a red scale, I'm going to block it from my perception. And if somebody comes with a red shirt, I hate that person immediately. So there's just these things happen. You have to be aware of those things. So becoming aware is the first, being aware of what are you reacting to? What are your triggers? That's like a self-awareness technique. First, make a list, spend a whole week writing down, am I reacting to food? Am I reacting to external impulses? Am I reacting to internal impulses? Am I having a pain here and there? It's something that is telling me that one of my organs is not working well. All those things, you have to take notes, because there's like a map that is going to tell you where things are coming from. Is it from outside? Is it from the inside?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm sorry.
And once you have your list, then you can start creating your map. These are things that I'm putting myself. This is things that I'm doing to myself. I'm eating these foods, and then I'm having this pain in my liver. Okay, so then it's not that it's going to go away on its own. I have to do something to fix it. I have to stop eating that kind of food. Number one, and my thoughts will change, obviously, because I'm not in a anger mode all the time. I'm going to be more open. And if you remove all the things that are needs of the body, like trying to solve this problem, this pain, or trying to fight with all these impulses, unnecessary impulses of food, then you're left with an open mind. Then, now I have space to think. It's like a pyramid of needs. First, you have to cover your needs, and then you have open spaces.
Do you think, I'm curious, as you were saying that, do you think that maybe, is that the reason, possibly one of the reasons why fasting is one of the things you do for cleansing the body, and also for maybe addressing some of these issues? Like when you fast, it's oftentimes before, I've always wanted to do this. It's on my list. I'm going to do this to do an ayahuasca ceremony with a shaman. And there's always a fasting period. You fast for 3 days before. And so I know you know what it is. But is that the reason? Is that the reason why?
Well, the reason why we fast is because we allow our body, we give our body time to heal. We give our body time to process things, and that gives you more space to actually be present. probably during the fasting times is when you're going to have the clearest thoughts. You're going to be the most focused. And why is that? If you notice that you're most efficient during your fasting period, then realize what you're eating. That will be your next thing. I fast every day 15 hours. I could fast more, but I don't eat any sugar at all. So if I fast more, then I probably start feeling a little bit dizzy. So I figure that that's like my max. So every day I do that intermittent fasting. But when I eat, I don't feel imbalanced immediately after I eat. A lot of people tell me, "Oh, I break my fast and I feel immediately fatigued, or I can't focus." I'm like, "Why do you break the fast with? What do you eat?" And it's like, "Oh, I had a coffee." I'm like, "Well, that's probably why. Why don't you try to have something more natural? So your body, the first thing that absorbs is that." Usually, I break my fast with water and lime. That's the first thing I have. My body cleanses, and then I have a chia pudding or something because I'm in this keto diet, so I have fat and protein. So that helps me feel balanced. I don't feel a big difference between I'm in a fast and I'm not in a fast. I continue, and that was one of my things. I really wanted to be balanced and find something that keeps me in the same state. I don't want to be different or be another person because I had a coffee. I had a Snickers and I'm fine. And when I don't have it, then I'm like a monster. No. So that's something, and it's true. That commercial is true because it tells you how affected you are by what you eat.
Absolutely.
So you have to definitely be mindful.
So people should definitely take notes on their bodies, but that's not something that people grow up telling us. As a matter of fact, people think that there are generally hard and fast rules, and there kind of are some general guidelines in terms of like these foods are generally not so great for us, and these foods are generally a little bit better for us. But there are a lot of peculiar individuality, isn't there?
Yes, exactly. I think people want to tell themselves that they can't live without one thing or without the other just because that's their way to stay in that comfort zone. But once they try something that makes them feel good because of any reason, perhaps they didn't have another choice, they went into some they had to do it, and then they experience that, oh yeah, I can live without that, and actually it's better for me. But they have to try it. It's just a matter of intention and really like having the willingness to be better.
Yeah. I tell people that day, you in order to get change, and you literally have to sort of kill the old self and rebirth your new self. But in many ways, it means you have to step into this room of uncomfortability because it's different than what you're doing now. If you keep doing those same kind of things that you're always done, then you're gonna always experience the same things. And so if you want a new experience, going to have to be able to be uncomfortable for at least a little bit until that uncomfortable period feels comfortable, because it always does. My personal experience throughout I've been a bodybuilder for 35 years. I won a national title. I've done all these. I've competed 57 times in my lifetime. I'm a coach, and when I was bulking up, when I was competitive, and I just retired a few years ago, but when I was competitive, I was much larger, and I was always eating. I was eating like 6-7 meals a day.
Wow.
I'm only 5'7", so like I was 272 pounds at my heaviest, and I've never been over 10% body fat. So I was a big dude. But my point is that I remember I always looked forward to my contest preps because I didn't eat so much less food, and because during the off season, I was eating so much. I was eating 1,000-calorie meals, and I was always tired. From the moment I woke up unless I was training, And of course, you're living, and many of us guys who are doing this stuff, we live in these stimulants, man. We're taking these pre-workouts, and we're like, so you don't feel, it's not a good sense of reality, because once it all wears off,
it's like, what am I?
Then you crash. So I totally that resonates with me. So today I practice intermittent fasting. I usually don't even eat until usually 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and I'll fast for easily 12 to 14 hours pretty easily. Once I go past 14 hours, I'm like you. I don't feel so good.
But it's enough.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of that resonates with me. But that's today. If I was a competitive bodybuilder, I would probably still be eating 6 meals a day because it's a necessity to get the weight up. Because I've had to downsize my physique to be able to accomplish this. But it's all been for good causes because I feel so much better.
Yes, of course. I'm sure that when you have to follow whatever is needed to get to those goals that you had. I mean, I don't know if I could ever do that with my diet. I only eat like 1,600 calories a day.
It takes you really basically have to live it. You just have to love it, and
Yeah,
and I had to look at it as I had to look at it from the vantage point that I'm not here. This food is not for my pleasure.
yeah.
It serves a purpose, and I eat it because it serves this purpose. And
Mhm.
everything was always focused on this goal, the goals
The
ahead.
goal.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and while that is really kind of wonderful in some respects, it's not really that great because in another respect. And this is the part I always get your 2 cents on. That it really, I believe when I look back today, it really encouraged me not to be connected with my inner self.
That's what I was going to tell you. That's the connection you were looking for. Like
Yes.
you were doing something because of belief, but you were not feeling that connection in what you were doing. So perhaps now you're developing that
Oh,
more, and now you're
yeah.
more yourself than you were then.
Well, for so many years, but it was
Mhm.
like it's almost been like a rebirth in the last 6, 7 years
Yeah.
that I feel way more connected, deeply
Yeah.
internally to myself. But it's taken lots of meditation,
Yeah.
lots of research, lots of work, internal work that I am committed to doing for the rest of my life, because
Mhm.
I try to tell people, look, there's too many rewards. There's just
Yeah.
too I can't step away from it.
Absolutely. And that's why, like, people tell me that my life is restrictive because I don't drink, I don't eat, I don't do anything. But it's not that. I get so much more back. You have no idea, like, the level of introspective that I can get, and this information that I can access by simply, I start writing, and then it's like, wow, this is perfect intuition, and this interest that I get into, like, start developing and researching. You have to have a certain state of mind for that. You can't just be like thinking about a chocolate cake and then also want to do that. It's not going to happen. It's like, what are your priorities and what level you want to be? Like, you want to be just in the level of satisfying needs of the body. I have to eat, I have to do this. Or you want to be up here, like, trying to, like, really reaching higher consciousness, things that are perhaps going to change the life of more people.
Yeah, I think it's been my experience that a lot of people don't really even know what that means. Trying to what they all they see is the stuff in front of them. Oh, I want the money or the things or the relationships, and those are all great things, no doubt.
Yeah.
But they're not the only things, right?
Absolutely. And when you start seeing other things beyond what is immediately in front of you or the stereotypes, then you start getting interested in transcending what is everyone else is looking for. So I could care less about a regular job, or like doing or having brand name things, or having this sort of experience of being at a bar or things like that. It's not my interest, because I'm in another level, right? Researching of other things, and it just gives me so much reward to be able to help someone that could come to me and ask me for an advice, or how can I heal this pattern, or how can I find the answer for this difficulty I'm going through. And me being able to read within them like an X-ray, being able to find out what they can't see, it's just so rewarding. I think this is totally worth it for me. Other people might not be in that state yet, and they might have other experiences that they need to learn before they can reach any other interest beyond themselves. That's also fair. Everybody's in a different stage of their journey. So they could be states of trying to find a way of satisfying their needs and just living for their needs until they stop feeling satisfaction for that. And at some point, then they're going to start looking for what's beyond my needs. Is there something else?
Wow, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I know you wrote a book. Tell everybody about the book.
Yes, well, this is my fourth book that I'm going to be releasing soon. Actually, this is a trilogy. It's called The Power of the Elevation of Consciousness, where I share techniques. It's a practical book where I share techniques to how to reach that state of awareness that we talked about. So in the first book, that is called Soul Restructuring, I share 21 techniques where I explain basically how to visualize grounding processes, or different breathing sequences, or things that you can do to reach that state of awareness that at some point it will allow you to detach from the ego identities. So that's the first book. The second book is more about the physical body. It's called Cellular Activation. And in that book, I talk about how we can reach that awareness from the physical body. So I explain how the different neurotransmitters make you or stimulate your body in different ways. So points, I share different foods that stimulate each one of the main neurotransmitters in the body. And I share a food process that is called the conscious diet. That is a diet that I did at a time that helped me clear my mind more. It helped me disconnect from excessive impulses. So it was something that I did for 40 days that allowed me to really restart my body so I could be like in completely neutral state. I needed that to know if things that were happening to me at that point were mine or were somebody else's, or what was going on, because I really needed to explain myself why I was doing things that I was doing that I didn't want to do. So I'm like, why are you still there? Why are you still doing that? What's going on? Why I can't get out of this? So, and I had to find my highest consciousness for that. And, you know, the bigger the doubt, the bigger the awakening. So my doubt was so big that I had to do something about it. And this Cellular Activation book helped me reach things that I couldn't really do in the mind level. So my body had stored different emotions and things. And that's where I explained, for example, imbalances of the elements, the water, fire, air, or earth. And I explained how emotions could change our composition of those elements, which are the basic elements. And
you talked about, I don't mean to interrupt, but you talked about your Tao, and tell everybody what you mean by that. You said your Tao was big, and tell everybody what you mean by that, because some people may not know what you mean by that.
The Tao?
Yeah.
My doubt. Oh, yeah. Well, my doubt was big because I didn't know. I had doubts about my experience because I knew, like, something similar to what you were experiencing. I knew that I had to do the things I was doing because it was part of what I had chosen. It was choices I had made. I'm an attorney. I have a real estate company. I had chosen to follow certain stereotypes in life. But I had a call. I needed to fulfill that call. So there was a disconnection there between what I was doing and what I knew I had to do. So in order for me to realize how to address that, like, what do I do? How do I live my purpose? How do I become more myself? I had to disconnect all the things that were interfering with that awareness. And food was one of them. Then also awareness of my physical body was another one that I wasn't really paying attention to. And
that's what these first two books were about, right?
Yes, that's what the first two books are about. And the third book is about perception, how I perceive things, because I realized that not everyone had the same reaction about the same thing. So you could be looking at something and you have a negative reaction. Somebody will be looking at the same thing and they have no reaction. So what makes the difference is how you internalize that experience. More aware of yourself, you have less of an influence of external experiences. So external experiences become something that you observe, but you don't necessarily become that experience. And that's how you're less susceptible to trauma because you're so aware of yourself that things happen and you're able to observe it and you're able to process it, in and out.
Do you think that's the reason why because I've noticed that when I was younger, in my teens and when I was younger than that versus when I'm older, I'm 50 now, that as I'm older, I am much more affected than when I was younger by people's comments, by you name it, by just the traumas of life, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. When we are younger, we have more of a sense of awareness.
So you think we're connected more when we're younger? I think
up to some point, because it depends what experiences we have lived. If we have gone through excessive trauma, then we start disconnecting from ourselves, and then our life becomes about healing that trauma. And then when you're older, then you are more connected. So it could be opposite. Perhaps you had such a good growing up that then you were more connected with yourself during that time, and you had good experiences, so you were really confident, and that made you more confident and didn't allow trauma to really stay within you, but it was just going through regular things that would happen. Other people will be more fixated, and perhaps not, because you're more aware of things. Perhaps there's no a mechanism or a method to allow you to process those emotions that you're going through. Then you're paying more attention to them externally. So just find a process. Like I have an everyday process. When I wake up, I do my Grateful. It's a gratitude meditation, basically just saying thank you for everything. I start my day with that, and then at the end of the day, I like to do a meditation, another meditation that is usually one of my own guided, like my own voice guiding me, because I've made them in a way that really make me get to the state of awareness. So you can find them in my YouTube channel. Actually, I have recorded a lot of guided meditations, and they're for different things. So there is one for body alignment. There is one to connect to higher consciousness. One's for connecting the brain hemisphere. So it depends, what you want to accomplish. But ending the day with something that disconnects you from the external and puts you more in contact with the internal is important. So you can do that by breathing exercise, reading a book, not your phone, or a meditation, just 15 minutes, and of bringing it in, and then you go to sleep. That's like the best way to let go of all those things. Otherwise, they stay within.
Oh, yeah, because we don't release them.
Exactly.
Well, Johanna, it has been absolutely, truly enlightening and wonderful to talk to you. I really, really mean that. I'm so glad that I reached out to you to be on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy you did. I appreciate it.
Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you if they're interested in knowing more about what you do and what you offer.
Yes, you can find more about me at my website, healersofthelight.com. There you'll find my reprogramming, subconscious reprogramming class online, and also in my Instagram of the same name, Healers of the Light, you can find daily inspiration. And my YouTube account, also I have several videos if you're interested in breath work, meditation, or just to know more about reprogramming is a good way to get you started in that knowledge. And my books are available also in Amazon and on my website. Like I said, the name of my book is The Power of the Elevation of Consciousness, and there you'll find exercises to connect to self-awareness.
Is that the latest book?
Yeah, it's a trilogy, so it has the 3 parts. You'll find the 3 parts are there.
Oh, okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and being on the show. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot, but stay on the line so don't hang up. But thank you so much for being on the show. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, guys.